Hey everybody, welcome to the Horus Heresies. I guess this is going to be a project for this great book right here, the Battle of Beta-Garmon. This is the new expansion for Age of Darkness that includes not just new scenarios, but also some new unit types and a whole bunch of background for this campaign, which is kind of featured in the Titan Death books, but is basically across the Beta-Garmon cluster. And because I don't know as much about the Horus Heresy as I used to, I dropped out like 30 books in. I've like picked up at the end. Well, I've got Henry here from Cult of Pain. Yeah, say hi, Henry.
Hi, Ash. How are you, mate?
I'm great, dude. And you've agreed kindly to come on and educate me and Chris on this battle in this campaign, as well as you've inspired us to some of our paint schemes. We've used a lot of the Cult of Paint stuff to get our starting ideas for our new armies, him doing White Scars, me doing Sons of Horus. And I'd love to hear more about this particular battle, because I've read Titan Death, but there's so much leading up to this, and there's so much to the actual battle that we're recreating. I'd love to hear the actual background to it. So can you fill us in?
So, how to do this? Super quick synopsis. So, Titan Death, amazing novel, Guy Haley. One tiny portion of this huge campaign that occurred in the Beta-Garmon cluster. So, slightly confusing thing is you've got the Beta-Garmon cluster, stars, planets, everything, and Beta-Garmon as a planet, or Beta-Garmon 2 as a planet, where lots of things happen. So, and they kind of get using that. But essentially, this book and the Great Slaughter, which is the one that came out for Legions Imperialis, which is basically its sister book, they flesh out this whole campaign, this really significant sort of prelude to the siege. This is the last big thing before the Siege of Terra. And all we knew about it for years was the Titan Death novel, basically.
That's the macro scale, the big battle part.
And well, it's one of the big like this is a. If cast your minds way back to old Forge World books, this, like the whole battle for Beta-Garmon cluster, could have been a 3-book Imperial Armor series. There was umpteen massive battles on a bunch of different planets and all the rest of it. But the cool thing is these books, and this one in particular, give us stuff that maybe we have one sentence about before, or maybe nothing we have before. We knew
flesh it out.
Hugely flesh it out. And I'm not a huge rulesy person, but I know from the point of view of that is they did a book about a year ago called The Siege of Chthoniya, which gave you a bunch of new campaign rules and things like that. Yep. That is all in this book. So you've got everything together, which is nice.
All condensed basically in one spot, yeah.
Right, which helps. But there's you've got battles that range from little shipboarding, Zone Mortalis, a couple of people things, to huge great engagements with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of combatants and stuff. But and a lot of it's no names, which is great, right? Heresy is all about Captain so-and-so, who is going to die, right?
That's right. Yeah, he's got a name for the next 16 pages, and then that is it for the next 10,000 years.
and that is I think the overarching theme of everything that happens in this campaign from a story point of view is it's very, very bleak. There's not really any heroism. There's not really any, this is just proper bleak grinding, attritional or warfare. You get this thing called the Dawn's mortification index, where Dawn goes, right, well, if I send 100 guys here, this will buy me 5 more minutes before Horus reaches Terra. So he's
doing the butcher's bill. Right? Yeah, he's doing the butcher's bill basically for what he can do.
And even to the point with the Primarchs, right? So these huge, colossal characters. He sends Jaghatai Khan, he sends Sanguinius to the Beta-Garmon cluster. Whilst where the war has already been going on for years at this point in that cluster, he sends them simply because they're the ones he has. It's not because they're best suited for the job. They're not going there to be Sanguinius. They're not going there to be Jaghatai Khan. They're just, well, off you go.
The math says this is what I have, and this will buy me the most time.
And he specifically tells them, do not die, right? if the opportunity arises to do something heroic, don't do it, essentially. So Jaghatai Khan gets the opportunity to attack Horus. So obviously he goes and does it.
He can't help himself.
Yeah, right. Which is what you guys have played out in this this scenario.
The clash atop Galamad is what this is called. There's these giant ziggurats across the planet, these huge technological, they're almost like hive cities, and that's where he chases him down to.
Yeah. So the planet, I think, is called, I don't really know how to say it, Deatus or Ditus. I don't know, something like that. So Khan gets this intel from. So you've got all the usual players in the sense of the legions we know about in this, but this, as well as getting rules for things like the Shattered Legions and the Black Shields, we also get a bunch of background for them in these books as well, which is lovely because this is kind of their last hurrah as actual players in the
fighting
Heresy.
units, yeah, because they're doing their like guerrilla war, basically slowing them down on the way to Terra, and that's really the best they can do.
Yeah, and now it's all culminated in the Garmon cluster. So you've got Terra where they are actually liaising with these various Black Shields and things. They're like, look, you don't have to do anything. We'll send you some help. We don't care. We'll sort this out when it's finished, kind of thing.
Right.
And one of those Black Shields forces, led by Endred Har, which is one of the new models we've seen, he essentially tips off Jaghatai Khan that there's something big's going on this planet.
Somebody big might be there.
Yeah, there's something's going on, and it is someone big. I mean, we'll kind of get to it, but there's a book called Wolfsbane, which happens slightly earlier than, or around the time the Titan death, and it's Guy Haley again, actually, because basically that man can write a novel in a weekend.
All the legions,
kind of thing, right? And it's sort of the first glimpse of what's going to be happening in the Beta-Garmon campaign, and I won't spoil it, but it's essentially Leman Russ and Horus, and what occurs between the two of them has a rather big impact on the Horus that turns up in this scenario.
Right. Because there's a bunch of people that try and kill Horus. Like there's a bunch of Primarchs that take their shot, and none of them make it.
No, and even when it was like quote unquote normal Horus, like they struggled. Like this is definitely not normal Horus anymore.
Yeah.
This is what the new model's for, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how that actually ends the arc for the Space Wolves and the Raven Guard, because the Raven Guard end up having to like go rescue what's left of the Space Wolves at the end of it all, and it effectively takes 2 legions out of the war. Yeah. That little like interlude before we even get to Beta-Garmon.
And at the end of that book, actually, I only read it recently because I'm doing a lot of hobbying in this. Whatever you want, this theatre of war at the moment and stuff. So I sort of did my history, did my reading, and I reread all the novels around it. And the end of that novel is bleak. Like it's just sad. Like it's just the wolves are like, oh, we couldn't do it, and Russ is probably not going to do great. I mean, spoilers. Obviously, Horus is fine because he gets Terra. So that has a direct impact. And then what happens after that to Horus culminates in the Horus that Jaghatai Khan faces on the Galzamad.
Galamad. I'm gonna say Galamad because it's got a G in it, but I don't know. These are all made up words.
It's something like that. Yeah. Galamad, nice one. So essentially, it's this creepy old ziggurat on this planet that was clearly a bit esoteric. That was clearly special in some way.
It's the hotel from Ghostbusters. It was made by an esoteric order. It was made by the esoteric order of whoever, and it's meant to bring back Gozer.
But it's perfect. It's funny you make the film comment like this is written like this is a movie. This scenario is a superhero movie, and it would be great fun. So from a playing point of view, or ideas from when you read it through, because I won't go into too much detail on it because it is fun to read, and I don't want to spoil that for people because we haven't had loads for Heresy to read for the last few years to get stuck into, So, and this book is, it does have lots of fun bits in it to enjoy. But you've got Sons of Horus, you've got World Eaters and whatnot. All a bunch of traitors are on this particular planet in the cluster. Everyone's like, but all the action's going on these planets, Beta-Garmon 2 and Theta-Garmon stuff. What's going on this tiny little Deatus planet? It doesn't make any sense. So they go over and have a look, and it turns out a lot is going on. Like it's like a big center of it's basically the traitors' command hub, for want of a better term, and all the weirdness that entails by this stage of the Heresy. But so you've got all the bad guys are on the planet, and then you get these incredibly cinematic ideas of the White Scars just charge down to the planet. You've got charges of jet bikes meeting World Eaters coming one way and White Scars coming the other way, and all these sort of heroic charge stuff. You've got essentially, I think it's Horus, it might be one of the World Eaters commanders, kind of, the ziggurat is just full of really, really angry world eaters.
Yep.
Really need to vent.
Yep. There's no other kind at this point. They've killed all the other ones that weren't angry enough. Yeah.
And it always makes me think of the scenes like we used to see in Gladiator and stuff, where the portcullis type thing would go up, and all your barbarians, your gladiators would come pouring out. And that's kind of what happens here. So by this point, the Khan and his Keshig and all of this are now sort of really hemmed in. They've got in close, so that all the defense stuff isn't really effective anymore. So they're in close, and then these grates open, and these world eaters come pouring out. So you've got tons of fun there. You could play like Zone Mortalis stuff if you wanted, or something like that. And then it all culminates. Obviously Khan gets to the top of this ziggurat, and it all goes. The lights go dark. Creepy music starts playing.
Yeah.
And then this just terrifying Horus turns up, and the Khan is literally like, "Oh, you're not my brother."
That's not my brother. Yeah, that's not my brother.
Like, I get it now. I understand why that happened to Russ. I understand why this type of thing, and it's even worse than when Russ kind of faced it.
Because every time he gets damaged, he seems to like have to absorb more of the power of chaos to like rebuild himself. And so like it's like if the beginning was Davin, you know what I mean, where he gets stabbed by the stone knife and has to like rebuild himself with chaos. Every time he has a confrontation with one of these Primarchs that gets messed up, it just seems to like aggravate how swollen and insanely he is.
I will mention a tiny spoiler now for the final Siege of Terra books, End and the Death 3. It's been a few months now. It's been out. But I don't want to ruin it in case people aren't quite there.
I'm almost done book 2. I'm trying to just read the 3 at the end just to like see how it goes. Yeah,
but the whole stabbing thing, the ritual stabbing thing, like that seems to be more and more hammered home as the siege goes on. And it's really interesting.
I mean, all person and them come back with the knife. So I figured it was going to be relevant at some point.
But you mentioned the fact that he's on Davin. He gets that. You had Yugen Tember and all. So there's a lot of that imagery, isn't there, throughout it. But yeah, essentially the Khan does what he can, and charges. There's always been these wonderful little comments that the Khan has made, or people have made about the Khan in previous books, where it's like people talk about who's the best Primarch, who beat the other Primarchs in the fight, and everyone's like, oh, it'd be Russ, oh, it'd be Horus, oh, it'd be Sanguinius, maybe Fulgrim, and then just occasionally everyone goes, oh, what about Khan? And it was like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, I probably would actually.
Probably Khan.
He just sort of quietly sat there like, yeah, I probably could. Like, and
he's the one that never speaks, right? So you kind of count him out because he's never talking, he's never mentioning anything. But
exactly,
he's nice designed.
It's nice that he gets that chance in a way. He obviously he meets Fulgrim in his novel, and then he gets the chance to take on Horus. But I say by this point, it's a fight he knows he can't win going into it, which I guess makes it more heroic, right? And so on. And so you guys have played this out. Like, which of you played Khan?
So I played as Horus, and Chris is playing as the Khan. And Clash Top Galzamad is basically a new archetype for an Apex mission. Apex missions are like thematic missions within sort of the dialogue of Horus Heresy when something like this happens. Nice. So it's called Clash at Galzamad, but the Apex missions basically are these like fulcrum points in the Horus Heresy story. So this is designed to be a mission where two Primarchs fight. So you could also do this for the fight between the Khan and Fulgrim, or that moment where Korax, moment where Korax ambushes Lorgar. It's one of my favorite moments during the drop site massacre, where Lorgar's like leading his men, and then Korax just whips his butt for like 5 minutes, and Kurz has to come and save him. And Lorgar tries to say thank you, and Kurz is just like, you're scum. I shouldn't have had to save you. You're scum. I love what a worm Lorgar is to everybody in the Horus.
But also that's such a wonderful story, because also then a few books later we get the new Lorgar. That like even Magnus is like, what's happened to Lorgar?
What are you?
Who is this guy now? Like this is not the little weedy dude that we had to save on thingy. I always know that I think he has a great character arc, actually.
Yeah, Lorgar always had like Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor energy to me. You know what I mean? Where he's just this like little creep, and you're like, oh man, what is happening? Why are you a Primarch? Why would they make you? Like, what's wrong with you?
You can just drop in the different Primarchs, can you? into this mission effective. Oh, that's really cool.
Anytime you want. So all the Apex missions are like that. So Across the Field of the Dead is like that too. And it's basically like an attrition mission. And there's like lots of asymmetrical stuff as well in here, because there's the new core missions that replace the central core missions in the rulebook. They're kind of updated and a bit more balanced. And then the Apex missions are all designed to be these big story points. And we wanted to start with one of the fastest ways to make a Horus Heresy army, because our plan is to alternate between Legions Imperialis. So our next game will be Legions Imperialis and the Horus Heresy's Age of Darkness. But the quickest way to make a Horus Heresy army for Age of Darkness is start with a Primarch. And a lot of people say like build up to a Primarch. It's like, no, just save yourself some time and start with a Primarch. Pick your favorite Primarch and go from there.
And also, particularly if you're going to play in this era of the Heresy, get involved.
Absolutely.
This is the final act almost. This is you may as well play the big guys. If you're playing like really early days, what's going on in Heresy and finding things out, build a Praetor yourself, build a story, all the rest of it.
There's not enough Marines left at this point, right? Like the Marines are mostly all gone.
And again, this is that wonderfully bleak thing. They're just pulling in anyone and everyone. You've got the Inductii, which were introduced in the Siege of Chthonian book, which is like the rapidly. I can't think what the phrase is. So they're gestated
quickly.
Yeah, they take someone from normal to Marine like that, and the only loyalty is through hypno-indoctrination. It's not through, to the point where you've got, the Imperial Fists taking people like Horus loyalist humans and just hypno-indoctrinating them and turning them into loyalists. Imperial
it's what the Space Marines turn into. Like it's eventually what it's funny because that's that like needs must thing, because I think Aaron Dembski Bowden does this really well in the Night Lords trilogy, where he looks at modern Space Marines. The Night Lords, like First Claw basically is like interacting with modern Space Marines and being like, you have no idea that you're just like a stopgap measure of what we used to be. Like you guys aren't even Astartes to be. You guys are just these weird automatons that have been like brainwashed. He's fighting like a Space Marine captain or something like that with a storm shield. And he's like he's chanting for the Emperor and like being all like high and mighty, and First Claw's just like, ugh. They're just such cynics about the whole thing, because they're like, you guys are garbage.
It is, and again, this is all brought to a head in this campaign. So that's why I say I'm so, as a fan, as someone who has, not to be like, I've liked this since before it was cool, but like as a fan who has been there from the very, very beginning, like it's unusual now to get such a significant part of the story only just being kind of fleshed out and realized. And I chatted about this with some friends on another podcast the other night, that it feels to me like this is second edition Horus Heresy now. This is where it's at. The models have got a new identity. The story has a new identity. It is much more focused now on the latter end, the latter half of the Heresy. That's true, because when it first came out, you're right. When it first came out, when you and I first started playing it, it was very much like the Great Crusade into Istvan, and this is like this titanic waste of life, which is what this is. This is the meat grinder portion, where because they're just trying to slow them down long enough to fortify the Sol system, that they're throwing everything they can at it. There's no like cost or honor or whatever on both sides. And that when it finally comes down to that final showdown, it's just the remnants on both sides grasping at Terra and trying to kill the Emperor. This bleeds both sides white. And literally the remnants, if you look at it from the Titan Death side of it, so that's I think sometimes because everything is so exaggerated with Warhammer and so apocalyptic, sometimes I think things lose some impact. But the fact it's called Titan Death, like that is a really epic title. And the reason it's called that is because basically when people go, why aren't there many Titans in 40k? And you're like, well, because of this.
Because of this.
Like, there were loads. There were loads before, and now there are not very many at all. And it is all because of this campaign.
Even on the traitor side, by the time they get to Terra, the traitors are having to demonically possess the husks of dead Titans.
Exactly, that's what it. Yeah, they've resurrected their Titans because they're all dead. It's terrifying. And again, that is a portion of this campaign. So if you're really into Titanicus and Titans and stuff, then you can go and enjoy yourself with that. If you're not, but you'd still like to be involved in this hugely significant bit of the story, you absolutely can be now, because now we've got tons and tons of new little narrative threads that you can pick up on, whether that's Black Shields, whether that's Shattered Legions, whether that's I want to do Blood Angels, but I don't want to do Siege of Terra. Okay, well, do Beta-Garmon and have Sanguinius fly down from the sky and take out a Warlord Titan and things like that. You know, there are all these amazing moments that, and again, they talk about it in the book. These moments of outrageous heroism that will just be forgotten in a blink of an eye.
Exactly. The matter for 15 minutes of actual in-universe time, because these people are just dead 5 minutes later. That is one of my favorite things about, I think, the writers for Horus Heresy now, because they've been doing this for so long. They have this idea of scope where when you're reading a novel in the Horus Heresy, you know you're going to get introduced to characters, be made to fall in love with them for 3 pages, and they're going to be gone 3 pages later. Like, there's a real art to doing that, where you have these people that like you instantly think are going to have like main character energy, and then they're just dead like 5 minutes later. I love that.
It's fun
because that reinforces the sense of scope. And I think the 2 games, the reason we're excited is because we can alternate between this mass combat Legions Imperialis style play, so we can get that sense of scale. Where it's like, oh, I just lost 50 more tactical Marines. Oh, well, like, you know what I mean? There'll be 50 more behind that. Like that actually is a thing that you can recreate. And then you can get these intimate battles where you can do a themed thing, like with these Apex missions. We're going to go back and forth doing these over the course of the summer. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun, because it's going to be able to, I think, highlight what the Horus Heresy game is now. And the historical aspect of it, the fact that we're not keeping up with like any kind of updates or anything like that, we could just take our time with it. It's just going to be a fun thing to like build and paint.
100%. And I think this is it. It's a very rewarding for a new hobbyist coming into the Age of Darkness. But again, I think it's very rewarding for people that have been in there and have maybe been in for 10 years or so. And I don't know about you, but I always felt like the overarching theme really of a lot of heresy has always felt has been sort of tragedy. There's all these tragedies, you know, you read these stories and there's so many of them. It's like Gandalf falling at Khazad-dûm and stuff, where you sort of, you know, it's coming, but you're like, oh, maybe something will be.
It's why Titanic was so good. Maybe the ship won't sink. And it's like, no, we all know the ship's going to sink.
And it's just shifted now, the vibe. And it isn't. It is. Yeah, everyone is dead.
And all the hope is gone, and everything that could have been is lost. I think that's you're right. I think you really hit the nail on the head with that transitional feeling, where like this is the dawning. I guess the dawning. This is the encroachment of the grim darkness. This is where the universe. This is where grim dark takes over the universe, and all of these moments that we see happening, these needs must things like hypnotizing kidnapped children basically to become Space Marines. That becomes perpetuated forever. We know that's the way it is in the future. We know that's the outcome of all of this, like 10,000 years later. But watching, there's something very fulfilling. I don't want to say satisfying, because it's tragic, but there's something very fulfilling about seeing those moments where it slides deeper and deeper and deeper into the dark.
You can't look away. Like it's and this to go back to this scenario, like this is one that really came out of nowhere. But it's huge in a sense, and they deal with it. You know, it's again, I suppose it perfectly encapsulates it. It's incredibly significant, and it also means nothing.
Yes, it's that's an element of grimdark where the futility of raging against the dying of the light is the entire point. And that's all that this means. That's all that happens, and like at the end, nothing changes. The outcome was inevitable, but these people that are trying to stop this slide, that slow sort of like entropy basically that the universe is now sliding into, they still have to be themselves, and they still have to try and fight against it. And that nobility against the die of the light is, I think, what we're fascinated by.
And Khan, I think, is a great Jaghatai Khan. I think is a great character to have explored that with a little bit, because he deliberately is this outsider, the forgotten one, all the rest of it. But for my money, he has some of the best novels of the entire. So I think Chris Wright is a phenomenal.
Chris Wright is a phenomenal writer. He's written 2 of my favorite books. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The Scars books are like, I got a massive, like, too shy to say hello fanboy when he was at one of the weekends, because I was like, I really love your books. I'm sorry, but I couldn't do it. But like he took a character that we hadn't heard anything about 50 something books into this series, and then he created this incredibly noble, heroic guy you know, that really could have been one of the foremost generals of the Great Crusade or of whatever.
Yep.
That he wasn't. He was just kind of sort of pushed off to the side of it. But the fact that he's there at the end, and the fact that there was no doubt, you know, that he would do his duty. You know, he went on a little journey to figure out because he wanted to know exactly what was going on. He didn't want to get duped and all the rest of it.
He had to make sure,
right. But he was very noble, and I think that's it's just a nice way, because you think of those virtues, and you think about Dawn, you think about Guilliman, and maybe Sanguinius, things like that. But the Khan was massive.
Yeah, he's not bombastic. Like, that's the thing, is he's not a bombastic character. He's a bit like Korax, where his arc is personal, and it's also about like the stoic sort of nature, the stoic sort of like performance of your duty in the face of everything. And he's reserved but self-aware. And I think that's Chris Wright's great writing, is he always writes characters who are incredibly self-aware and compelling, and he can make them enigmatic, but at the end you're like, oh no, you had to do it this way because of your nature. You know what I mean? Your nature is to be the sudden lightning, or the cautious storm that knows what it's doing at all times, and you can't strike until you know. And so you had to go on this journey because that's who you are. And there's I think that's the like joy of this new book, is that you'll be able to take any of those scenarios where that kind of thing happens, and then have a bunch of different ways of kind of expressing that on the table. And so that's our plan. That's our plan going forward.
Cool. Like, that is, and as someone who's about to embark on a big, should we jump ahead? Do you want to finish this bit off?
Yeah, let's roll it off. Let's tie it off. Perfect.
So basically, spoiler: Shadrak Meduson turns up and teleports the Khan out of danger, and it's like,
so great,
so
great.
Shadrak,
the Deus Ex Machina of Shadrak showing up is great. Yeah,
love it. And
you have to love when a regular Astartes has to rescue a Primarch. That's one of my favorite things, is when these interventions by these like minor characters that become these huge tipping points, basically narratively, are some. I mean, it's the Nathaniel Garrow and the Gavril Loken. Like, it's these characters that weren't called to glory except for that whole. That was it? It's the Gordon Freeman effect. The right place, the right man in the wrong time, right? Is can make anything possible.
Yeah, and I mean he's a great character. You know, for people who enjoy the stories, you have to really love the stories, because you kind of have to go and find the Shattered Legions story arc. It's spread out amongst anthologies and short stories and all this, but there is a very distinct, you know, main character, and that is Shadrak. You know, and it's a microcosm of the Heresy. You know, it's got everything you want. It's got heroism, betrayal, all the rest of it. But yeah, I love the fact that he crops up there as well. And that's not the end. You know, there's still a good few pages of story following, but that doesn't matter right now, as it were, for what we're talking about. But yeah, myself and my little hobby group want to do this kind of what you're talking about. Play it over the sort of next year or two. Play the different systems, so Titanicus, the Imperialis, and Age of Darkness. But we want to explore the Shadow Crusade stuff. So the things going on with the Ultramarines, the Word Bearers, the World Eaters, and then a few little nuggety other bits. But it's really cool to hear that we can like lift that scenario, and we can use that to represent when Guilliman takes on Lorgar on the name has now escapes me. The cool planet where they do the big shield wall thing, and Angron.
Is it not on Cal? It's not Cal. Yeah.
That's really embarrassing.
It's one where Angron becomes the Red Angel. That's right. Yeah.
Armatura.
That's right.
Is it Armatura? No, Armatura is earlier in that book. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Tell us in the comments how wrong we are.
But yeah, it's really cool to know that we'll be able to, because we as a group have never really been into having the Primarchs on the table for normal games. It's always felt a bit too, well, they wouldn't. Like, you know, they take each other out.
That's the great thing about the scenario, is the armies end up fighting each other around them, but because the Primarchs start the game engaged, you don't have that problem in normal Age of Darkness where it ends up with the two Primarchs in the middle of the table for half the game. They just start there, and so it kind of automatically balances the more point-heavy, powerful Primarchs against each other, because you have less of an army fighting. right?
Yeah.
So if you have a more powerful Primarch, you have less fighting force to try and fulfill the rest of the objectives of the mission around them as they start the game. So they're very cleverly written in that way. So I'm really excited to get them on the table and to find other ways of expressing this, because I think that's the joy of a ostensibly historical game, is recreating your favorite moments, those scenes in the movie, right, that really grip you, and getting to put them on the table. And for people who love that,
that I think if you approach it with that historical gaming mindset, I think that's where you probably get the most out of Heresy. We have the potential to get the most out of Heresy, because
with like-minded people. Yeah, you need to find like-minded people, because there will be some people that just bring 17 knights, and you know, like you gotta.
I'm sure I'm sure that's a fun like gaming thing if that's what you're into. But there's also lots of other options for doing that, right? Whereas I think what you have in Heresy is a ludicrously deep, broad narrative that you can go and pull. You can use as reference material, right?
Absolutely.
You know, like I love things like the Badab Wars in 40k, but that's 2 books. That's all I've got. You know,
2 books, 1 planet, and it's done.
Right. Whereas, you know, this is 80-something novels, a bunch of old source books if you can get hold of them. You know, and
you could spend the rest of your life exploring the Horus Heresy, basically. The rest of your hobby life, until you're too blind to paint miniatures, could be spent just exploring all these novels and these settings and these little bits and pieces.
And
so
I think that's probably where mine is. As you know, we were talking about, you know, when you make your hobby your life, like you have your job, you know, and I have with Cult of Paint, it limits your personal hobby. And it really makes you take stock and go, what do I actually want to get out of this? What do I actually want to do? And for me, if you said all you can do, you know, I would miss fantasy things and all that time. Of course I'd miss it, but I'd still be really happy if all I ever did was Heresy.
Yeah.
You know,
I have a friend who says
there's so much there.
Because people will say like, well, the Heresy is going to be done after these last 3 books come out. And it's like, well, no, it's not going to be done. It's going to be complete. And the great thing about having a hobby around something that's complete is that's aspirational. You can chase that completeness, and it's now an achievable goal to explore all the nooks and crannies. Like, just because a game doesn't get any more updates doesn't make it any less like engaging, especially when it's something as big as this. You could almost endlessly kind of explore it. So tell me more about Cult of Paint. Let's do some pluggies at the end of all this.
Pluggies. I guess why am I on talking about Heresy? So other than obviously I love reading the stories and stuff, Cult of Paint was started by myself and a guy called Andy Wardle, which I'm sure a lot of people will have heard about. He's a phenomenal painter. I'm just waiting to hear, actually, if he's won the Slayer Sword at Adepticon.
I sure hope so.
I think he's got a very good chance. He's done these beautiful Eldar unit. I think about an hour's time from now. We should not to give away when we're recording this one, but hopefully, So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. So essentially, we have done. We teach in-person painting classes all over the world. We do online tutorials. So we have a YouTube channel. We do free online tutorials. We have Patreon. We do online stuff there. We produce various miniatures ranges, larger scale stuff for specifically the painting, not for gaming. We're putting on our first large miniatures competition exhibition, which is really exciting in a couple of months.
That's so exciting.
That will be a very big part of our future. Something we want to do. What else we do? We've got a paint line coming out later this year. We love painting, and I think that what it really comes down to is what we try to do with everything we do is make painting more enjoyable for people. Like what we wish there was. That's kind of how we approach it. And it's turned into a full-time job and all the rest of it. And like many people, like lockdown and COVID and all that changed things, and we had to diversify, and so we got into YouTube, and that's why we've done it. And so we have on there, I've done a Heresy playlist on there, so you've got like
it'll be linked in the description. Actually, it'll come up in the cards
you guys
here
have
too.
Used it, right, which is really cool. So you've got at least one scheme for every legion in there. Plus, you've got things like Custodes, Solar Auxilia, and that will just keep getting added to as I change my mind on wanting to do a different scheme, and I'll just add it in there because I feel like it. That's the nice thing with Heresy as well, is it sort of supports a lot of different painting styles. It's not. There's not one, I think, thing that's associated with Heresy, which is nice. A lot of people like the old sort of military modelling style of painting, which is something I love, and I think it works beautifully for Heresy if you think of it like that historical, game. I think it really suits it. We've so Andy's personal army is Sons of Horus, which obviously we've got a bunch of tutorials on there for, which you guys have had a look at, which is really cool. And when the second edition launched, I painted up the box for launch for Games Workshop as White Scars, which is really cool. So I have a fairly, in fact, I have them.
We're just biting all of your styles. We're just
game with them. But again, it was
copying your homework. That's the plan.
It was a lovely opportunity to really learn about army painting. Army painting means different things to different people. So hopefully what we sort of do is provide alternative ways of doing that to perhaps the classic way that you may be used to if you've come in via Games Workshop, and that's sort of how you understand painting. It's base, it's this, it's wash, it's this. We're trying to look at, we use a lot of things like oil paints. We use airbrushes a lot. We've got some signature series airbrushes and stuff. Like it's where myself and Andy met as well as a hobby was Heresy. It's where I did my one and only Golden Demon. Like it's not, it's a very a part of the Warhammer hobby that's very close to my art. Really, it's the reason I'm doing my job now.
What I enjoyed about the playlists and the things that we kind of researched to do this project was my whole thing is always, where is the next generation of hobbyists going to come from, and how can you get people to enjoy that completion loop? What my friend Dave Taylor used to call the victory lap of when you get to paint the rim around the base at the end. Like if you have that fascination with tiny worlds, my thing with all miniature wargaming is that we all have an inherent sense of like a fascination with these tiny worlds in front of us and our need to like arrange them into new and pleasing shapes. The more you can demystify that for people and make it feel possible, then the more people have access to it, the wider the on-ramp is, and the more people come into it. So I loved all the painting tutorials because it felt like that was your intent. And hearing you say that, I think is just reinforced that for me, is that it's more sort of like of the fulfillment of doing this stuff more often for more people seems to be what you guys are going for.
It's enjoying. That's the bit. We're always very careful not to talk about being a better painter or get better at painting it, because that means nothing. Like
it's all subjective.
Right, exactly. But what you can do is you can try and make it more enjoyable. So I have friends that are older guys that physically can't do certain techniques because their eyes won't allow them to, or their hands, their grip won't allow them, things like that. So what can you do to help them enjoy because they still want to paint, they still enjoy the meditative, creative pastime that is painting miniatures, right? So what things can we look at as people who are able to do whatever we want currently? Right, well, let's look at different techniques, materials, this, that, and the other, and understand them, and then educate ourselves on them, and then be able to suggest those to someone and go, oh, if you're struggling with this, try this out. You might have more fun. And it might sound a little bit grand and worthy and all that, but it really just goes back to trying to be the person that we wish we had when we got in, or we did have when we got into the hobby.
When we were just trying to copy what we saw in photos and had no idea what we were doing.
Exactly, right? And now with things like the internet and on YouTube, you now have that, and classes, in fact, in-person classes or coaching, we now have the means to deliver that for people. And I love it on classes. We get sometimes, I'll never forget one we had. It was a tank painting class, actually, and I had on the table, I had the guy who had just won the Slayer Sword at the Heresy weekend.
Right.
But he'd never airbrushed before. So he'd come on this class to learn how to airbrush. Right. So he sat next to this fairly young kid who was brand new to the hobby.
Right.
He doesn't really know about Golden Demon, this, that, this. He didn't really know.
There's no idea who he's sitting next to. No concept of this. Yeah.
And they had a great weekend. They chatted.
That's
obviously
amazing.
By the end of day two, one did look a little better than the other. But at the end of day one, they looked pretty damn similar because
pretty
they were
much the
brand
same.
New things, right, to both these guys.
Yeah.
And that was one of those real like, oh yeah, this is fun.
There's nothing more fulfilling than seeing people light up to what they're potentially capable of doing and feeling that satisfaction. I mean, it sounds aspirational and grandiose, but that's not, that's a great feeling to have when you're making something. And so it's a good thing to chase. Yeah.
It is. And it's approaching that, like wanting to be in this for the long term. We're nearly 10 years, in, we have no intentions. Like this is our career now.
Yeah,
We're not in it to make a quick buck and disappear. Like you
have to at 10 years. I'm almost this is my 10th year too. Yeah.
It's mad,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
you have to make something. I don't know how this has happened, but it's about
6 years of cult and 10 years of teaching. Like,
oh my goodness, that's
it's
incredible.
Pretty mad. Yeah, pretty mad.
Well, so thank you so much, Henry, for coming on, man. This was great. It was great to hang out with you. I'm so glad we got to do this. We did see each other at the Horus Heresy Weekender in 2022, which was nice. That was a whirlwind, though, of a lot of stuff happening. So I'm glad we got to hang out again and do this. And we'll be doing, hopefully we can do this again when we go back to Legions Imperialis. I'd love to hang out with you when we pick a Legions Imperialis spell, and maybe we can do this again to kind of like do the lead in.
Yeah, that'd be great fun. Thanks a lot, Ash. Thanks for having me on, mate.
No worries. So you guys can go check out Cult of Pain. It'll all be in the cards and, of course, in the video description. And you can check out the battle report today, too, for the clash atop Galamad as Chris Sly from Lords of War Games and Hobbies and I throw down with his White Scars against my Sons of Horus. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. You can check out the battle report for the battle atop Galamad, as well as all of Andy and Henry's great tutorials on Cult of Paint by clicking up in the cards. Have a great day.